Hey, Cosmo again with another Sunday shave. Today we're going old school with little Williams mug soap. Razor for today is going to be the Maggard Slant head razor with an MR11 handle, and I've loaded a feather high stainless double-edged razor in there. And our brush for today, I think we'll go with this custom Dogwood that was made to look like a deconstructed barber's pole. You see the red and the white and the blue in there. Stephen Joyner over at Dogwood Handcrafts did an amazing job on that for me. And then the knot in there is a 28mm B8 from Declaration Grooming. So with the Williams, it comes in a little puck like this, and it smells like hand soap, like Dawn, I think. It's got a little bit of that citronella smell to it. Just smells soapy if you don't like citronella. It's not crazy like Arco. But because I scoop my soaps, what I've done is I've taken my little spatula and scraped some out of there. You can see where it's been scraped out, and I've got it into my loading bowl here. So we're going to go ahead and load up that way. A lot of people have said that they have trouble lathering Williams mug soap. So this is the way that I do it. I get the soap into my loading bowl and go from there. One of the problems I think that people have with this soap and any soap is they don't get enough soap loaded into their brush when they go, and people will drop this into a little mug and then try and get their brush rattling around inside that mug, and it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of time to actually get enough soap on the brush. So by scraping some out and putting it in there, or putting it into a larger mug, you can make sure you get enough soap loaded up. So I'm going to get my Doglaration brush here. I'm going to shake out the excess water, and we're going to start loading that up. Now, one of the things about that people like about this Williams mug soap is probably the first thing that it's cheap. I think I got a 5-pack of 1 3/4 ounce pucks for $8 off of Amazon, and so that's pretty cheap. I mean, it comes out to 3 to 4 cents a gram if you work that out. People have a lot of nostalgia associated with this soap, and it's been around since the mid 1800s. I believe it was reformulated though, and what I'm using is the latest formulation. And what I'm doing is I'm just loading it until it gets a little bit sticky, and then adding a little bit of water to my brush and continuing to load. I'm not putting a lot of pressure on the brush. I'm not trying to splay out the tips right now. I'm just working it in there. And this method does take a little bit longer than some of the other methods out there. I'm not saying it's any better or any worse. This is the way that I like to do it. For me, I don't like to get a bunch of water in there too quickly, because what ends up happening is it goes into a million little bubbles, and while I can work those bubbles out, I just feel like my lathers aren't that great when it goes into all those little bubbles. And so I personally prefer to load up the brush a lot more slowly. And you can see it's starting to want to lather up. The brush is getting loaded. There's still that much soap left in there. So I'm going to dip the tips in the water, and I'm going to continue just slowly loading this up. If you're having trouble lathering any of your soaps, usually the #1 culprit is going to be not enough soap. That's what I learned. For me anyway, is if I don't get enough soap in there, I don't get enough lather. I can handle too much soap because I can just keep adding water to it, but not enough soap is going to be super airy and bubbly, and unfortunately I see a lot of lathers that look like that. Now you can see that this is starting to lather up, and if I start to put a little pressure, you can hear that lathering up. It's still really dry, but you can see that it's starting to make a pretty good lather in there. And that's not a ton of effort, so I'm going to add a little bit more water, and even a little bit more than that. And I like to incorporate that water, mix it around in there before I apply a little bit of pressure and get the knot to splay out and start lathering up, and that's going to prevent those little tiny bubbles from forming. Now I hear a lot of people say that they don't like this soap for one reason or another, and I know there's some people like the old hiker that have always said that it's a good soap, and I only tried it this week for the first time. I actually, to be honest, I tried it as sort of, I don't know, like a goof, and I wasn't expecting it to be as good as it was, but it turned out to be a really good soap. And you can hear as that starts to, you can see it's really starting to work into a nice lather now. I'm gonna add a little bit more water here. And I can feel the resistance on the bottom of the bowl when it starts to get too dry, and that's when I'll go and just dip the tips of the brush in there, incorporate that new water into the existing lather, and then give it the slightest bit of pressure to get it to splay out. And you can see there's not as much resistance on that bottom now. So I've picked up the majority, let me see if I can even get it visible now. I've picked up the majority of that soap down there. I've got a decent starter lather going, and so we can go ahead and consider that brush fully loaded and take some of that. You can see it's still super dry, but we can take that and start working our face lather now. So I do a little bit of a hybrid. I load it up, get the lather slowly started in the bowl there, and I consider that just loading, and then I take it and I get my final hydration going in the face lather. So I'll get my face wet. My hair is going a little crazy today, sorry about that. So you can't say this stuff doesn't lather, because as you can see, I picked up a lot of soap and I've got a ton of lather. It's fallen off. And that wasn't difficult. But it is super dry right now, so we're going to keep adding some water to it. So I just dip the tips in, work that water in, get that stuff off the sides. You can see it's starting to goop off here. Then painting. More water. That was a lot of water, but it's okay. A lot of soap needs a lot of water, so. Now you can see this is a ton of lather, and you might say it's overkill, but if you're having trouble, load too much. I always do. What am I, saving it? I'm not trying to save anything. Add a little bit more water. Now it's gooping all over the place, so it's a good sign. So some people don't like their lather this thin. I like my lather this thin because it's nice and slick. So let's see how, I even dropped a big gob of it right onto my razor case here. Let's see how that works out. I'm gonna fill my bowl. We've got our feather high stainless loaded into there. This is shave number 2. On this blade. And you can see this is gooping off right here. That when the soap is just falling off of that, you only need to rinse it in the bowl. You know it's thin. And that is super slick. And you got a ton of residual slickness there. So we'll go ahead and rinse that off and then hit pass number 2. And that soap is still, I rinse it off, and that is still insanely slick on there. So we'll dry our hands and we will go for pass number 2. You can see that. That's a good hydrated lather. Might be a little bit on the thin side, but it's on the crazy slick side right now, and that's what I'm looking for. For me, I don't need a big, thick coating of lather. I just need a thin, slick layer. And this is as slick as it gets. That might look super thin and not going to win any lather photo contest, but that slickness is really good. Really good. It almost lathers back up again with the residual that's still on there. It leaves a good slick coating. And that's still slick enough to go over. I can't even stretch the skin. That's still slick enough to go over again. Still really slick, and you can see it's starting to like re-lather just from that residual stuff that's on there. It feels like there's like a coating on there still. Really slick. All right, so that's a really good 2-pass shave. We'll go ahead and call it there in the interest of time. Let me rinse this off. That stuff takes forever to rinse off. Still feels slick. Now for a post shave, and again, my hair is all over the place. For a post shave today, I'm going to be doing my mixture of, this is Zingari Man Unscented Balm. And I like to mix my balm with my splash. I don't know if chemically you're supposed to do that, but it feels good to me. So I hit a couple of shots of that there, and then I'm staying old school with this Epsilon blue sample that I got, and so we'll just go a little bit nuts with that. And you kind of get the best of both worlds. Just mix those together. You get the moisture and protection of the balm with the feedback and fragrance of the aftershave. It doesn't dry your skin out. Ooh. Little menthol there. No sting or anything from the razor though. So there we go. That's the way that I lather Williams mug soap. Lather got a little bit thin on us on the end there, but it was still insanely slick. So, as much as some people might not like it, some people might love it, I'd have to say that the Williams mug soap is a pretty dang good shaver. So we will see you next time.